for those looking to get into the business, aspiring journalists, I guess what advice would you give to them, and knowing kind of the changing media landscape that we live in, I guess what maybe core, um, I don't know, core tenets would you want to impart upon, that high school, college student looking to break in not only into NFL reporting, football, sports, but maybe being a journalist in today's world?
Yeah, I would say that number one, you have to have a passion about it. You know, you have to be curious, and in some ways, in many instances, you have to be unafraid. You know, um, I- it, there are foundational elements to do this job that should go without saying. Things like number one, hard work. If you want to be successful in this profession, you got to work hard. Um, what does that entail? It entails a lot of hours. It entails a lot of preparation. Russell Wilson likes to say the separation's in the preparation. And the same is true of journalism. So, I teach a course at San Diego State, and one of the things I always say to the students is I am neither trying to dissuade you or to push you into journalism. What I want to do is make sure that your eyes are open to what you are going to face should you go down that road. Number one, it is a very tough business, very competitive. And the way that it is today, if you are afraid of being fired, don't go into the business. That's my recommendation, because there are a lot of extremely talented people who have been fired or who are on the street, not because of the quality of their work, but because a company decides, you know what, our profit margins aren't where we want to be, and therefore we got to make cuts. And that's different from when I first got in the business. When I first got in the newspapers, a lot of newspapers were family owned. The ones that I worked at were what, particularly in San Diego when I got there, it was family owned. And that's different from having to answer to shareholders, or venture capitalists who come in and buy media outlets simply to strip them down and sell them for the highest profit margin. So I say to young people, if you are afraid of being fired, don't come into this business, because the likelihood at some point is you will be. Number two, um, always have a plan B. I learned that during my time at Sports Illustrated, where they were taking the magazine public. They were going to have an IPO. And so Sports Illustrated was buying out contracts and it was laying people off. Excuse me. And so in February, I'm in New York for the Super Bowl, and I'm at our offices there, and another email comes out and says there's going to be another round of layoffs and buyouts. You got it. So I reach out to my boss and say, hey, do I need to be concerned here? No, you're okay. This is February. Well, in March, I'm driving to the dentist's office, about to park. I get a phone call, see it's from the boss, and I'm thinking we're going to talk about a story. And it's, hey, bad news, we got to let you go. It's not performance driven. You make too much money, and we can hire two for the price of one. And I was totally unprepared for it. Now, I was fortunate in that I got a job pretty quickly after, but I was unprepared for it because I had bought into that whole thing. If you do good work and you work hard, you'll always have a job. And that wasn't the case. So these things that I'm saying now are not meant, again, to dissuade young people from coming into the profession. It is more to say, just come in with your eyes open. And if you're okay with that, man, go after it. The other thing I have to try and tell young people too is understand what all is involved with this. Um, because you put in a lot of hours. If you want to be successful and you want to climb the ladder, you put in a lot of hours, and there's a lot of unpredictability. You're on the clock 24/7, literally, especially if you're a professional beat writer. And so now you and your girlfriend or your spouse may have dinner plans for celebrating an anniversary, and all of a sudden the story breaks, and you got to say to her, hey, babe, I'm sorry, got to go to work. Not all spouses are going to be, um, okay with that. Let me just put it
Yeah.
that way. And so these are things we deal with. And so if you're not comfortable with that, is this the right business for you? Maybe a 9 to 5 is better. So having said all of that, um, it is still one of the greatest professions and jobs around. And you know this, Ben, we get paid money to cover a kid's game. And when we see the special and unique talents that these athletes have, and to be around it and to be able to write about it, to me, is just a tremendous joy. And one of my things is like, I really get motivated by trying to find out when I see greatness, trying to figure out what makes this person great, right? What makes this person tick, male or female, young or older, what makes them tick? And when you're around those individuals, um, man, it gets me going. I remember I did a piece on Jerry Jones one time. And so, of course, all the haters came out about Jerry and they're just going off and whatnot. And I said, for me, what was so gratifying about the story is regardless of what you think about Jerry, he is truly one of the great businessmen in this country. I want to know why. I want to know what makes him go, you know,
Hmm.
what motivates him, he's got enough, but it's clearly not enough because he's not willing to settle there. Um, and so I just love being around those individuals to try and figure out, their mindset, how they approach what they do, why they're successful, and maybe why others aren't. Um, so yeah, it's all. I went off on a number of different areas to that question, but no, if you want to get into it, man, there are no secrets. You got to work hard. You got to build relationships. It's a relationship business. At the end of the day, it's a people business. Um, and the thing that I have found or tried to do is treat people with respect. So what do I mean by that? You're going to write negative stories at times. But what I always try and do is before I write a negative story or something that is negative or critical, is at least go to that individual and say, look, here's what I'm writing, and give them an opportunity to address it. Doesn't mean it's going to change what I write, but at least they've been heard, as opposed to they pick up the paper. I'm sorry, I'm doing my old school thing now, pick up the paper, or they open their phones and all of a sudden there's a story and they're like, well, what the hell? I didn't know he was doing this. And what he said ain't right. He missed this part, the context here. Um, and now you've burned a relationship. And people think the NFL is big. It is not big. It is a very small place where you develop a reputation really quickly. And if your reputation gets out that you're, always looking for the salacious, or you're not going to represent or present the facts as they are, guys can shut you out now real easily. Because why? They have their own platforms now. And in many ways, they don't need us
Yeah.
because they can go straight to the fan. Whereas when I started out, they couldn't. So there's a delicate line there and a balance there that to me is kind of fascinating. And fortunately, I won't have to navigate it, too many years longer. I'll leave that
Yeah.
to
It's
you
all
young
all my
guys.
generation.
Yeah, and that's real. That's
Yeah,
real.
it
So,
is.
um, but it's a great profession, but it has its difficulties like everything else. But at the end of the day, for me personally, um, it's just being able to be around people who are the best at what they do in the world, and being able to write about it, being able to discuss it, and learn from them. Um, I can't imagine doing anything else.